our moderator, Solis Marich. Eric Garcetti. Baratunde Thurston. Can you guys turn this off?
You're off.
Are there any questions? Should we just go?
Go.
All right.
Go.
So obviously, this is I was thinking about how we would get started today, and let me just start. Let me get the conversation started off by first of all saying that it's really exciting that this many people even want to talk about this, considering the fact that it is such a dicey topic, and it's so dicey that I don't even know how to start. So let me start kind of in the middle. This last year, the coverage of the tensions, the political tensions between African American and Latino communities has been absolutely horrendous. I mean, in many respects, at least from my perspective, as a political activist, as a political consultant, as somebody that works in the media, in many of the instances, mountains were made out of molehills. It's not to say that there aren't tensions there, and as there are amongst many different demographics, as people, especially as people move forward in the political spectrum, as people begin to take power for themselves and take power for their communities, because we live at a time when people think that power is a zero-sum game, and so that some people gain, that means in some people's mind that other people lose. There's also, and I'm going to say this, it's kind of strange to be here with Eric. Eric Garcetti is the president of the LA City Council. I have a lot of respect. For Eric. I've watched his career, and I think he's doing an amazing job. And I was hoping that I would be here somewhat anonymously so I could talk about Los Angeles as an example, and I really can't, but let me go for it anyway. There are, and Eric will just pretend I never said this in his presence, but there are partnerships within the African American and Latino communities in Los Angeles, for instance, where there are, although tense, power sharing agreements. There are districts, for instance, as an example, in Los Angeles, where there clearly could be Latino majority voting in those districts, and yet there have been arrangements made so that we, as Latinos, don't really surface powerful candidates in those districts because we understand the importance. They're currently held by African American elected officials that are doing great jobs, that are progressive, that we support, and so we have not, although have been often asked why, don't support really qualified candidates or very supportive. Candidates will always sign up to run, right? But we really don't push high quality candidates to run in those districts, and that's always been a very quiet arrangement. It's been something that has never been talked about publicly, I might say, until probably this moment. And so to sit back and watch the coverage of how Latinos and African Americans don't work together this year, knowing that has been just one of the quiet agreements, and it's quiet for a number of different reasons, and most of them are good, quite frankly. But that type of power sharing does exist. It exists amongst our community-based organizations. It exists amongst our elected officials. Now, does that mean that those tensions aren't there? Of course those tensions are there. And if nothing else, what I'm hoping that we can do, since everybody is focused on this issue, is find a way so that we could rally support together, so that we could even work closer together, because obviously that we will have to anyways. We're going from our community is going from a place of activism to governance, And I'm not even talking about the presidential race, right? I just, notwithstanding the presidential race. So that's my 2 cents, and let's go ahead and let Baratunde start.
Thank you very much. That was a good introduction. So my name is Baratunde Thurston. I'm a blogger with a site called Jack and Jill Politics, which is a black political blog. I also cross-post to Huffington Post occasionally, and I'm a stand-up comic and do sort of political comedic things. My interest in this panel, I'm just excited to be here. One, I want everybody to notice the demographics of the panel. I think we can already see there's some gamesmanship going on. Surround the black dude by the brown people and let him fend for himself. John Brazil couldn't be, give me some backup. I just want the record to be clear on that. But I think where I come from this is through this blog, which is a very active blog among African-American middle-class folks who are very politically active and also being obviously very involved in the Obama campaign and trying to Barack the vote. The thing that I key in on is this idea of tension is real, but it's much more nuanced. In my own experience and in the reports that I hear from folks, there's not a great sort of black-Latino divide that is so simple that you can just call it that. And when the people who announce that, you have to kind of look at what their interest is in this whole thing. The folks in the media have been put in a position to comment on race relations and gender relations in this country, and they're woefully underqualified to do so. Yet they're being asked hour after hour, night after night to fill this void of advertising space known as cable news. And when they do that, I'll give you an example. On the night of the Pennsylvania primary, I tuned into the most trusted name in news. And John King, he loves his maps. Like, he has these big maps, he likes to touch them. It's really weird. I'm not going to say he really likes maps. Maybe he should just get his own map. And they were asking, will voters in Pennsylvania vote their race or their gender? Let's go to the chart, right? And they go to the chart and it looks like white males voted their race. As if, you could completely account for and analyze and communicate the vote of any person, much less a group of people, by one factor like that. I think overlaid on that, you always have groups that are kind of gaining power, as you talked about, and taking power. And it's in the interest of the majority groups to play us off of one another. So what we often hear in the black community is, oh, the Latinos are coming, guard the border, join up with those dudes with the guns. Like, did you know that the demographics are going to look like this soon? Right? Did you know they're going to take all those jobs? And there are very local, tensions. There are tensions between different types of Latino communities and different types of black communities. So you might have Dominicans and blacks, maybe very different from Puerto Ricans and blacks, from Mexicans and blacks, and Salvadorans and blacks. And that sort of nuance doesn't get communicated. So what I try to do, and what I definitely notice, is to try to put that tension down, because it's very distracting. And it keeps us from talking to each other in a sort of a civil manner, and to try to focus on the areas where there's problems, but also create the coalitions to get things done for all of us. So that's kind of my opening statement. The most trusted name in this is not very trusted.
Isn't that the one that Lou Dobbs is on?
Yeah. Oh my God, I didn't even talk about crazy Lou Dobbs. He's on a mission. We'll come back to it.
We'll come back to it. Eric Garcetti.
Well,
city council president from
that's
somewhere.
right. We'll talk about Los Angeles. But I think a black-brown coalition has the capability throughout this country, in many cities and many key areas, to be the most powerful